As a business owner, are you thinking of exiting your company? Are you thinking, what do I need to do to sell at the end of the day? If you have a horizon, you have a timeline, and are you the reason you won't be able to sell your company or get the multiple you're looking for? Welcome to episode 27 of the KeyHire Small Business Podcast, where we cover the issues that help small business owners scale their business. I'm Corey Harlock, creator of KeyHire Solutions, where we help companies grow with our talent, and I'll be your host today. Our guest today is Craig Dickens. He's a chairman of Merit Investment Bank. I think he's up in Seattle or something. Let me see, where are you, Craig, here? Washington, up in Washington. Merit Investment Bank raises capital. They buy and sell companies, so he knows what he's talking about. He's walked the walk as a serial entrepreneur. He's started 8 companies. He's acquired 7 companies and added 20 plus bolt-on or add-on companies to increase the value of those companies for resale, I'm sure. He's an expert at assessing management teams, which is exciting. We'll get some of that insight today. And on a personal note, he's got 5 kids, so he's a busy guy. He's managed to get 3 of those kids out of the house, and 2 of them are still in there. But today we're going to be talking with Craig about the founder bottleneck, how to build your team so you can sell your company. So Matt, let's bring Craig on to the show. Hey, how are you doing?
Hey, Corey, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm good, man. How is the weather up in Washington right now?
Man, it's been fantastic. This is a time of year we live for, although today's a little bit overcast, but it's been good. No complaints.
You could be in Houston where every day the low is 78 and the high is 100 right now.
Exactly. And you have to change your shirt every 20 minutes, right?
It doesn't even matter. Like when I used to live up in Canada, if you had some, sweat spots on your shirt, you used to be really self-conscious about it. Down here in Houston, it's part of the uniform, man. Those the wet spots on your shirt.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, hey, want to talk to you today. I'm super excited because, first of all, you kind of come from that. Are we calling it a family office? Or are we calling it PE? What is, what space are you dabbling in? I think you're low to middle market, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of wear 2 hats, right? So running an investment bank for the last dozen or so years, right? We help clients buy and sell businesses, prepare management teams for succession. And then also I do a little bit of buying for our private equity family office, make direct investments. So I wear both hats. Predominantly on the investment banking, it's selling businesses. Right. And then obviously on the private equity side of things, we buy businesses.
And so part of selling those businesses, so you're really, don't get mad at me, like a broker in a sense, like people will come to you and say, I'm thinking of selling. So you would go in and do the due diligence and run it and come back and say, and give them the news that here's what your company's worth, and then watch them go, oh no, it's worth 10 times that.
Yep. That's a common, the number one deal killer is seller expectations. Everybody thinks their business is worth, 10 times what the market will pay for it. But the good news is there's usually a path to increase that value. And a lot of that has to do with the management team and the quality of the management team. I forget whether it's Charlie Munger or Buffett. What are the 3 most important things in the deal? Management team, and management team, right?
That's like real estate, right? Location.
Exactly.
So we're going to get into this a bit, which I think is an amazing topic for. So we always try to look at it through the lens of I'm a business owner. Maybe it's a generational business and there's no one coming up that wants to take that over. Or maybe it's, I've been running this business and I'm tired, or we've never been busier. I want to take some cash off the table, whatever it could be. So let's talk through, we're talking about the owner bottleneck, right? And you and I and most people that do what we do, you go in and you're always trying to find the constraints. I always look at operational constraints. What's holding you back from delivering? And I always look at that from the talent aspect, right? But for you, walk us through, and maybe that's, what is it, right? What is the owner bottleneck, and what are you looking at in terms of evaluating and putting a price on and reselling a company what do you go in and evaluate? What constraints are you looking for within a business?
Yeah, great question. And I think there's multiple facets to it.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, it is. And I think, look, most people, and let's just say I'm a welder, right? I started off as being a welder. I got a reputation for being a good welder. And then at some point I decide that, well, I can do this myself. I can do it better than, my boss maybe. So those people that start off and start a company, it starts as a lifestyle company, and they take their skills to the next level. And they reach a certain growth in that business typically, and it's mostly on their back, right? Being the founder or being the owner, the buck stops here, right? But ultimately, when companies grow to a point where, that owner becomes the main constraint, if they're touching everything, if they're having to make decisions on everything, and they talk to their banker and they hire people and they deal with insurance and all the things a lot of entrepreneurs don't like to deal with, that takes away or can distract from their growth. And certainly it takes a different mindset to actually scale your welding business, right? So that you're not also, doing payroll and doing the welding, right? So you have to scale. So you really have to be able to look at the business as something more than just a lifestyle and a passion and something that you started, but bring on critical resources and critical people, not only to do the work, but also to maybe take away the things that are not adding to your genius or adding to your passion, that don't fill your cup, right? It's a very touchy-feely, it's not filling my cup. I hate doing insurance, but I have to be the guy that does it. So, at some point you have to trust. And a lot of founders and owners are hard driving type A. I built this thing from the ground up, and the word is I. It needs to turn into we, right?
Right.
So, that's always the conundrum. And as you go to exit your business, those things that helped you grow it and make you successful, and the grit and drive, can almost be a negative when you go to step out. And so we call it owner dependence, right? So a buyer will look at your business and how dependent are the key customer relationships? Who owns them? Is it with a salesperson or a sales team, or is it with the owner? And if I pay the owner a bunch of money, millions of dollars, and all of a sudden he goes away, do I now have a problem that those relationships are also go away? Yeah. So, that's through the lens that we look at, through that owner dependence, and how well that owner has mentored his team and actually gone on vacation 30 days and not checked in every day, right? Take a 30-day vacation. That's our litmus test. If you can't do that, you have owner dependence.
Right? Get out here, right? Yeah. And so you bring up a couple really good points. And, the arc of a small business is, we take this welder and they start a welding business, and it starts going. So they hire their neighbor to help out, and then they hire their neighbor's buddy, and they build a team of people who want the business to be successful. And that is how 98% of small businesses get started, right? Yep. Not very few businesses put a plan together and then go to a VC company and get seed money, right? That that doesn't happen.
Sure.
And so you build this leadership team of people who are all doing the best job they can and helping out wherever help is needed. Mm-hmm. And then at a point, what you've referenced is they hit that ceiling where, and I talk about this all the time because it's really important. And when I talk to business owners, I say this: the hardest decision they will ever make in their entire career of owning the business is when they realize that crew of people that gave them blood, sweat, and tears and got them where they are have now become the constraint to the business growing beyond. And often that is because that owner has been doing the same. They're kind of dipping their toe in everything. And that person did not start a welding company because they love to hire and do HR, policy and procedure, and search benefits and go out, shop their benefit program and negotiate insurance contracts and put health and safety process and procedure in place and get OSHA certified. That's not, they love to weld. And that what you're identifying is that crux where they have to say, okay, we need to go get experts. And then the other thing you said that I would tack on to from the capital standpoint is, the human capital standpoint is, you need to bring people that have that capacity that can say, okay, we're doing 10 million now. You want to get to 30. Well, don't hire someone from another $10 million a year company. Hire someone from a $50 million a year company, pay them, because they can build the process and procedure that will enable you to grow responsibly into where your goals are, right? To help you meet your goal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, if you think about it, and this is this distinction owners need to make at some point when they're thinking about liquidity. Most of us, we start a company because we either have a passion or an idea, or we think we can do it better. We grow the company, and then it provides the things that we wanted it to provide, right? The toys in the garage, the boat on the lake, the second house, maybe, put the kids through college, all of these lifestyle attributes. But it truly is an investment. And if you want to get to investment grade and get someone to pay you for your business and the value that you've created, you have to invest in those people. And to your point, most company owners, they had a $5 million, $10 million, $15 million business. Well, they're always at the peak of their learning, right? Because they've never run 15 million, 10 million, 5 million until they did it themselves, right? So one of the secrets of private equity, for example, what do they bring? They bring capital. So you mentioned the bootstrapping of the company. They bring know-how, right? Because they've done it 100 times, or they have people in their Rolodex that have done it 100 times. And ultimately, they bring human capital that has done it at a level. They've gone through the lifestyle to institutional, further professionalizing, or having grown the business and scaled it, they know what's going to work. So a lot of times what they're doing is they're doing what's called top grading of talent, right? And saying, all right, what got us here may not necessarily get us to our next set of goals. And that is, you're absolutely right. That's a tough, that doesn't mean you need to let go of, your neighbor that you hired to do a certain job, but the job may change and somebody else may be better suited for that job. And,
or they might get someone hired under them with the hope and goal of being mentored and trained. So down the road, maybe they are now able to leave that company and go to another company and have value in what they do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the critical component there is to think about, there's one key hire in the evolution of going from growth to scale is, just as you mentioned, finding that, 2IC, that second in command. Because if you do get hit by a bus as the owner, you want somebody to be able to, on behalf of your family, right, to be able to run that and pick it up, and so that you can actually go on vacation. And then, to your point, building up that mentorship of the rest of the management team, so it's not just concentrated on one person, whether it's yourself or your second in command.
And so that leads nicely into the mistakes. The second top thing we always like to talk about are, in your experience, what are the common mistakes an owner will make, to them being the constraint of, getting a cash event or getting an investment or selling or getting the multiple they want for their business? What are the most common mistakes they make?
Yeah, I think, from a human capital perspective, reinvesting in people, it's kind of contrary. If I bring on a CEO or a vice president of operations, that's going to cost me, pick a number, $250,000 a year, all in, fully burdened, right? Plus some bonus, or maybe they want some equity. So that's going to hurt my earnings. It's going to hurt my lifestyle. But like anything with people, it is an investment. And you should get an ROI on that investment, right? So if I have to pay someone to come in and do a job for, let's make the math easy, for $200,000, and I want a 3 times return on my money, that person should contribute to the value over time, 600 plus thousand, right? So if you think about it mathematically, it takes some of the emotion out of it. Yeah. You're really making an investment in the thing that you know best, which is your company.
Right. And that return can be in revenue and or cost saving, correct?
Absolutely. It's usually a combination of both, right? If you bring somebody that knows the efficiencies, and And I would say another mistake that we see is, just like every owner has a life cycle in their business, every business has a life cycle. And if you've been fairly mature in your business, i.e., you've been running it a long time, your risk tolerance goes down, your desire to reinvest in technology, and look at AI. It's everybody's talking about it. Well, if you're that old line business that doesn't invest in a young whippersnapper who knows AI and can save you $1 million over the next 2 years by making your business more efficient, you're going to lose out, and your life cycle curve is going to go down even faster, and you're going to be less competitive in the market. So I guess we could put that in the bucket of being penny wise, pound foolish. And that's a mistake we see some people, they want to ride it out, whereas you really have to keep reinvesting in people and systems and processes to be really marketable.
So what I think I heard you say was stay current, stay on top of technology, and don't just say, well, we're a $20 million a year business right now. We're profitable to the tune of, 25%. So what's that, $5 million a year? I should get 10x on my business. So I should be able to sell this for $25 million or whatever it is. I don't know if my math is correct there. I know. Did I say 50 million?
50 million, yeah.
Right. But then you come in and go, for us to modernize your business is going to cost us a couple million. And then we have to play a little catch up because you're already on the decline in terms of capability.
Yep. Yeah. And bringing on the talent, so could you learn AI as a founder? Could your director of operations learn how AI can affect your business? Pick something else if you don't like AI and it's too topical and nobody knows whether it's real or not, right? Whether I'm actually going to save some money. An ERP system.
Lean management is a big one.
Lean manufacturing. Yeah. All of those things that, it's usually easier to hire expertise. You can even do it on an outsourced basis until you're ready to take on that role. But it's usually easier to get the expertise versus train the expertise, because your competitors, time is your enemy, right? Because if they do it faster than you are, you're going to start losing some business. So really, you have to see that as an investment and also measure it from an ROI standpoint. Am I getting the ROI on the hire? And usually, if you're the right person, the ROI is the easy part.
And there's a way I ask my business owners to look at that. You can hire for experience or you can hire for potential. And potential is the young whippersnapper, as you mentioned. They're going to be cheaper in the door, but the ROI is long tail because they don't have the experience and capacity. So you're going to have to give them that to them and mentor them. So you have to make sure you have something in place to kind of maximize that ROI. But let's call it 12, 18, 24 months before they're paying for themselves, not paying you back in multiples, right?
Yep.
But you can go ahead and get experience, and that's expensive. But your ROI should be almost immediate if you get the right person. And you should be paying at the end of year one, you should have recouped that investment and you should be on the way to being profitable again.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So it's investment mindset. Yep.
Yeah. And in my experience, the mistake a business owner will make is they'll try to split the baby and they'll try to find that young up-and-comer whippersnapper that they think they can convert to get that quick return on investment. And that's just playing the long odds, right? That's like going to the Kentucky Derby and betting $1,000 on the horse with the biggest odds. The chances of them winning are slim and none. But if they do, it's a huge payoff, right?
Sure.
But is that how you want to run your business? Like, do you want to play odds, or do you want to go through the process of identifying your needs and hiring that right experienced person who can walk in on day one and say, nice to meet you. Now, can you please excuse me? I have work to do. And they start making it. I have a client who brought someone in, and it was my favorite line ever. He said, I don't expect you to make changes too quickly, but if you could start before lunch, that would be great.
Yeah. There's something to be said for when expertise shows up. It should be a relief. And for a lot of founders, right, it's our way of doing it. No, our company's different. Well, I'm a professional in my space and I've run a $50-100 million company. I think I have a pretty good idea. So one of the things that, it's hard to coach this, but as a founder, you have to be able to let go a little bit, right? You have to be able to say, hey, I understand my way was the way that got us here, but let's trust your way to get us to the next level, right? Letting go is the hardest thing sometimes.
Not just the founder, but the founder's could be best friend who's going to be working under this person. It takes a lot of humility. And this is where I always get super cautious, because business owners bust their butts to get where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone comes in and says, "Oh, your baby's ugly.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to change everything." And there needs to be a callback or some recognition of, look, you've done a great job to get here. And whenever we bring experience in, we always have that conversation with that talent that's coming in saying, it's super important you understand they've done a great job to get where they are. And you can't just go in and say, "What are you guys doing? This isn't how you run a business." And you kind of upset everyone. And, people always say, "I love change." What they forget to say is, unless it involves me.
Yes.
You can change everyone else's job, but I'm really good. You don't need to touch what I do.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure in your work, you do a lot of work, in terms of not just the quantitative. Yes, I've come in and I've grown revenue, or I've grown EBITDA, or I've, saved 20% on the operating side of the business. But there's that EQ and that management capability, that mentoring. It's really hard to screen for, if you will. You have to have conversations. You have to really, check those references. And, a great hire is one that can come in and honor your culture while at the same time getting the rest of the team galvanized around what the future can look like, right? And they're hard to find, because, like you said, some people come in and bull in China shop. I'm going to change everything tomorrow, and that doesn't go well usually.
I think it's a skill set in itself to understand what needs to be changed and to change things quickly, but also making people feel like you're bringing them alongside and they've had a say in that. And it really is a skill set. And the last thing I think, you didn't mention it, but you probably were going to, is the owners who there's no documentation, there's no delegation, right? When you're buying a business and the business is the owner, the value goes down really quickly, correct?
Yeah, systems and processes. And, as it relates, I'm sure you get involved with writing job descriptions, right? Because there is no documentation of the job description. The other thing that the founder will do is put on the lens of, here's the job today. And they can articulate the job today and maybe even craft a job description that's compelling, but also accurate. But what about the job tomorrow, the next year, right? You want that to be aspirational, not only to attract the right candidates, but to say, this is the trajectory we're on, and these are the skill sets that we need, right? We don't need yesterday's where we were. We need tomorrow where we're going. So that's definitely a mistake we see.
One of the biggest mistakes they make is hiring for today's needs and not future needs, right? And that's a big part of what we do, is build capacity into those roles and make sure they understand why we're bringing people in. So that's a great word, building capacity, right? Building capacity in. I love that, because as it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, everybody's usually at the top of their game. That's why you hire them. But unless they've done more and they can bring that skill set back into your company, that's where you really get that multiplier effect. Correct. Yeah. So I think we identified three main ones. It was, not hiring the right leadership and talent, and cheaping out or trying to bargain hunt on people. It's hiring for today's needs instead of future needs. It's not keeping up with the times, whether it's technology or innovation or whatever it is, and just kind of thinking we own this market, we're good, and not remembering there's always someone coming up behind you who's trying to knock you off your pedestal. And then the third one was, owners not thinking about documenting. Another big one I know is getting your financials in order, right?
Oh, absolutely. Top grading. But you said something that really struck a chord with me, and it reminded me of something relative to, from a top grading standpoint. The second I mentioned, seller expectation as a deal killer, and owner dependence, but that financial accuracy and acumen if a lot of entrepreneurs are growth focused, they don't tend to be bean counters, right? But really having someone in that role that is really good, not only from a cash flow and closing out your financials, but really thinking about the financial acuity of your firm. I mean, that's huge, because folks will walk away from messy QuickBooks and, just because it's too much to correct, too much to fix, and you can't rely on it. So that's definitely a hire that makes a lot of sense. And one last thought, and this is the one that really kind of struck me, along the lines of the changing personnel landscape, we're seeing a lot of companies make a hire of a data scientist or a FP&A analyst or even a sales analyst, because nowadays, I don't care, let's use our welder example, right? You think of welding as a services business and an old line business, but they're also usually distributing products and doing other things. But really, in today's data-driven world, you have to be open to new hires and hires that aren't on the org chart. Like, what does the business need to compete in the next 2, 3, 4 years? And that may be something entirely different than what you have on your org chart today.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's a good segue into, advice. So based on the mistakes people are making, or if there's a business owner out here who's thinking, selling in the next 3, 5, 10 years is on my horizon. It's something I want to do. What are the top 3 to 5 things you would recommend they start doing right now to better position themselves to get a fair multiple? I'll caution that by saying not the multiple they want, because that's probably 50% more than the right multiples in some cases. So what would you kind of advise them to start looking at and getting in order now to prepare for a sale or an acquisition?
Yeah, great question. I think there's a few things that come to mind. The first of which is you got to have great advice. And that advice comes from the people that you're probably leaning on to help you grow the business. So start with intent and sharing with your close advisors that you're starting to think about this. So tell your attorney and say, hey, I'm thinking about, exiting my company. I know it's a process, not an event, and then I'm going to have to do some preparatory work. So on your personal side, do you have an estate plan? Do you have a tax plan? Do you have all those things as an entrepreneur that you need, so that it's not how much you sell it for, it's how much you keep, right? So let's be smart. Let's play a little defense. Let's do some preparation. Then go to your CPA and say, CPA, I know I'm running the boat and the country club and all these other fun things because I get to take advantage of the tax rules and save some taxes by having a private company, but I'm thinking of selling in the next few years. How should I be structuring my finances, my accounting controls, all of those things, and my taxes to be able to coordinate that? So now you have an attorney and a CPA, right, that are on your team and know your goal. And then talk to an investment banker or a business broker, depending upon the size of your business, and say, okay, I need you, Mr. Investment Banker, to not only tell me what I'm worth today, but tell me what I have to do to make A, my business sellable, and B, get the multiple that I want.
Right.
And then once you have that conversation with the investment banker, they can give you some tangible advice on a time frame and tell you where the bang for the buck investments are.
Right.
Now, if you want to stick around and be a minority shareholder and work for another 5 years, that will, there's one set of rules for that. But if you want to walk away the day of the sale, right, you got to do some other preparatory work to make sure that you can meet your goals there. And then lastly, once you've got your attorney and CPA and your investment banker giving you all of this advice, and it comes with hard fought experience, then go to your wealth manager and say, okay, these guys are telling me that today I'm worth 25 million. I'd like to get it to 30, so I can probably do some things that they recommended to get it to 30. Is 30 enough to meet my personal goals and to live on and all of that? And they can craft a plan so that when you go into that sale process, you're not nervous. You're not wondering. You know what you're worth. You know what the market can bear. You know what your number is. I'm going to sell for this and not a penny less, and give or take a couple $1,000,000. And then I know that my family's set, or that my financial goals are going to be met. So, I mean, that's the process. And if you try to do that 2 months before you're ready to go to market, it's not going to go well. I would suggest a couple years getting those people aligned and on your team. Yep.
What's that lead time? And you brought up something I think is worth making a distinction between. So if you're being acquired as a bolt-on or an add-on, there is a chance you can walk, right?
Yeah.
Especially
by a strategic buyer that already has knowledge and understanding and all the people back at HQ to do your job and others, right?
Yep. But if you're being purchased as a platform, you'll probably be expected to have it to go through an earnout. So my understanding of an earnout is like, you're going to be here for 5 years. Here's what we're going to pay you, and at the end of the 5 years, we're going to assess the company, and you're going to get another payout. So we're going to give you this much cash now, and then there's more cash coming at the end, which is probably more than if you just took the buyout. Correct?
Yeah, it can be for sure. You get that famous second bite of the apple, but I would just add one other element to what we call deal structure. So if you're being purchased as a private equity platform and someone's going to grow your company by further professionalizing it, giving you additional capital, maybe making some acquisitions, you will be expected to stick around for a while and or have a very clear succession plan. All right, you want to exit in 2 years, we'll allow that. We got to hire a CEO, and you're going to be very involved in that process. The other thing in that environment, in addition to a potential seller note or earnout, they will likely ask you to roll some equity. So if the number's 30 million, you might be expected to roll 3 million back into NewCo for the next 5 years. So you'll be an investor as well as maybe an employee. Or if you're not an employee, at the very least, you're going to be an investor. So it's hard getting out of your company, and nobody lets you, kind of walk away, so to speak. It's very rare that someone has 100% cash. Here you go, right? Have a great life. So you just have to be prepared for that. And I think your investment banker can outline what we call the universal buyers of who's the most likely acquirer for your type of company. And that you might say, I don't want to talk to that group because I don't want what comes with that, the 5 years hanging around or rolling equity. I just want to talk to strategics, right? That'll give me that exit path. But I guess I'll end with this thought. The definition of a truly valuable company is one that doesn't need you in it. So you want to increase your walkaway odds. Make sure that you've got a management team that is rock solid, that you don't own any of the relationships. You're just showing up to board meetings and reviewing monthly financials. If you can get to that state, then you're in tall cotton. And
you said your acid test is, can you take a 30-day trip and the building doesn't burn down?
Yeah, we do that for two reasons, right? So can you relinquish control without checking in and putting your thumb on it, on the scales? And this is interesting because we find, especially with 3-4 months away or less control, companies sometimes flourish, which proves that the owner was the bottleneck. And so they even surprise themselves and say, well, I thought nobody does it as good as I can do it. Well, your team, you've done a good job preparing them. Maybe you do have some more flexibility and freedom in your life than you thought you did.
They come to the realization, maybe I am the pain in the ass here.
Exactly. My way is not always the scalable way, right?
Right. Yeah. So, Craig, if someone's listening to this thinking, man, I have been thinking about selling my business, and I'd like to pick Craig's brain and learn a little bit more about him and what Summit does. How can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think Merit Investment Bank, our website has our investment bank name in it, so we show up on SEO. I'm on LinkedIn. I've got a lot of folks that are followers on LinkedIn, and we put out some publications there that could be helpful. And our blog talks all about the things you should do to get prepared. And certainly feel free to reach out via email. It's craig.dickens@Merit Investment Bank. There you go. Got it right there. Happy to have a conversation and see if we can help you achieve your goals.
Very cool. And we'll put all those contacts in the liner notes. My bad, Merit Investment
Yep,
Bank,
yep.
Merit Investment Bank. Hey, thanks so much for your time. This has been enlightening. It's been a great conversation. I think there's a lot of value there for anyone really who just wants to understand about the finances of and options of owning and running a business. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely, Corey. It's been great. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate it. All right, there we go. Craig Dickens from Merit Investment Bank. My bad. Thanks for tuning into the KeyHire Small Business Podcast. If you got value out of today's episode and want to keep up to date on our new content, make sure you hit the follow or the like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you prefer to listen to your podcast, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, any of the major platforms. Just search KeyHire Small Business Podcast. And if you'd like to learn more about working with KeyHire and how we can help your small business grow with our talent, jump on our website. We have a free consultation button on there. We promise no sales, no weirdness, just help. We are a help-first organization. We're happy to have a conversation, point you in the right direction. If you like what we have to say, we're happy to continue the relationship and we can talk about working together. Thanks for listening. I'm Corey Harlock. Until next time, stop grinding, start growing.